automatic weapons such as the MP18 are often seen as like noob weapons in Verdun, because a lot of new players come on the game, they're not used to using rifles and handguns and stuff, so they come to get this gun because they know it, and they know it from other games, and that's what they're more comfortable with, especially if they come from Call of Duty and Battlefield. But I've played with it the last week, and I think it's not as newbie as I first thought, and I very rarely use machine guns or automatic guns on the game, so I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video about it and talk about it today. Hope you enjoy. So first of all, I'm going to look at some history of the weapon itself. I'm not a weapon historian or anything, so don't slaughter me too much in the comments if I get something wrong. But yeah, so 25,000 were produced in World War One, and it was used in the very latter stages of 1918, and it was known by the Germans as a machine pistol. That's what they called it, and apparently they still use that term today, from what I was reading. The gun was later modified to take a box magazine, as the drum magazine was really unreliable, and I think that's because it was developed, or the idea for the drum magazine came from the artillery Luger, which you can use in Verdun as well. It uses like a larger magazine, and I think that's obviously to carry more rounds and things, but apparently it was very unreliable in the trenches. But later from that, the MP18 was developed, which the MP18 apparently was an inspiration, it sort of inspired other weapons makers, especially on the Allies side, to make similar copies of that type of weapon. Which is really interesting. And then finally, obviously, the famous MP40 was used in World War II. So the design for the MP18 worked its way all the way up to be the MP40, which is really interesting. And I think everyone's used that weapon or seen or heard of that weapon before. Especially in games and things, from the classic Call of Duties and Battlefields and stuff. But one thing Verdun have done really well, all the World War One game series devs have done, is the look of this weapon. It looks amazing, and from all the pictures I've seen, it looks exactly the same as it does in Verdun. So they've done a really good job at that. So to use the MP18, you have to be on the central powers, of course, and you have to be in the strop up or the strop up. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's a German word, but apparently it's the assault. It's the assault specialists basically within the central powers, and specifically the role you want is called the weapon specialist. And again, I think it's in German, but it pretty much looks the same as English, as it says weapon specialist. You can see in the image there. And so that's interesting, and I think that's fair, because the weapon, we're going to go into if the weapon's good or bad soon, but it can be overpowered sometimes if you've got too many of them on the field. And I think a big complaint about from a lot of people in Verdun is sometimes you can change your squad in game to what you want to be, which means you could probably have, I think that this is possible, you can have 4 different squads which all are assault specialists, which means that you all have this class to choose from. And so some people might find that overpowered, but I don't know, that's a debate for another day. But I just thought I'd tell you there how to use the weapon, because it's certainly worth a go if you've never used it before. So we're going to look at the pros and cons of the weapon, starting with the pros. My biggest pro for this weapon is probably the round capacity that it has, or the ammo capacity. It has 32 rounds, and even though in certain situations you can go through that ammo like there's no tomorrow, it's still, for me, it's enough, because I always find myself tap firing this weapon. I don't usually go I don't go fully automatic all the time, because the weapon isn't accurate enough to do so. So the ammo capacity is pretty good for me. As I say, it does go down quite heavily in certain situations, but on average it's pretty decent. And secondly, it's great on small maps for attack and defence. It's part of the weapon specialist or the assault class. Obviously you're thinking more of attack and stuff, but on defence it's just as good, especially if there's a lot of guys in your trench and you need to do that trench clearance. It's perfect for, but obviously it's good for attack as well, and it works well with the squad around you, because the squad around you in the assault class is full of grenades and Lugers and stuff. It's all about that close quarter combat sort of action, and this gun's really good to support that. You don't need an LMG, you can use this instead, and that's really good. Again, this gun, talking about LMGs, it's really good at suppressing, because it's not always too accurate, and if you want to fire quick, you can actually just suppress the enemy instead. And this gun's a really good sort of swap for an MG, because what it can provide the same role as an MG, but it's just a bit more adaptable. You can walk around with it, you can aim close up, you can go really close to the enemy. With the MG, you often have to be quite far away. You have to be in a stacked position. Yes, it doesn't have as much ammo. Yes, it's not as accurate, but it does suppress the enemy just as good sometimes. So if you're a bit of an MG player, you want to switch it up, definitely have a look at the MP18. Then finally, for me, for the size of the round capacity, I think the reload is pretty quick, and I think you know on this game, especially if you're on you know you're assaulting the enemy trench or you're up close with the enemy, you need to have a really decent quick reload, and that's what this gun has. And that actually again goes back to the MG. If if you're using a big MG, 200 rounds, it takes forever to change and reload. With this gun, it's up close. You can do a quick, take the drum out, put it back in. You're sorted. You're ready to go into combat again. So yeah, that's definitely a big pro to this one. So let's look at the negatives for this gun. First of all, it's not accurate at all. It's really, really not accurate. The recoil pattern is so difficult to get used to, and in fact, I say a recoil pattern, but there is no pattern to it. It's uncontrollable. It goes left, it goes right, it's up, it's down. You don't really, you can never guarantee how the recoil is going to work with this gun, and it sort of goes back to the point of where I was talking. I'm calling this a noob weapon, but is it really a noob weapon? Because if this was the first gun I got in the game, I'd be fucked out. I'd have 50 deaths, no kills all the time because I wouldn't be able to get used to it straight away. So yeah, that's the first really difficult thing you have to get your head around is the recoil for this gun, which is why I always recommend tap firing. But then if you go at tap firing, it sort of takes away from the point of what it's supposed to be, I suppose. So I mean that could be an argument for it. But that's the first negative thing about this gun. The recoil is really difficult. Secondly, the slow fire rate is not good either. The slow fire rate, for such a slow firing gun, it shouldn't have as bad recoil as it does, and so you don't expect it when you start shooting and all of a sudden the recoil goes up and up and up. You're thinking, what the hell's going on here? But yeah, it's a really slow firing gun, which sometimes can catch you out, especially again if there's a group of 6 people. If you're not suppressing accurately enough, the slow recoil will let you down, and you'll get picked off too easily. So that can be a bit of a difficulty. I suppose the positive to the slow fire rate is that at least you don't burn through rounds too quick always, but it's still an issue. If you want an automatic gun, you want its fire rate to be somewhat decent. I think the BAR is a lot better for this than the MP18. Another really bad point is that it's a 2-shot kill weapon, and the problem is with 2-shot kill is that if you use a bolt action, you can guarantee almost 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a 1-shot kill, and they'll pick you off straight away. And again, it goes back to that thing: if there's 4 or 5 people, or there's a group of people in front of you, each one of them, if it's not a headshot, they're going to require 2 shots. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to take a longer time to kill them, which obviously gives them more time to fire back and kill you. And through a problem, there's a sort of a problem which occurs from this 2-shot kill thing, is that sometimes your first round that you shoot doesn't always register straight away, and I seem to get that a lot more in a server that I'm not from. So for example, I usually play an EU server because that helps with my ping, but if I switch to a US server because it's late at night and there's not many people on the EU server, I seem to get this bullet register issue where the first round just doesn't hit the person or it doesn't count for anything, and that's really frustrating. And that's a big issue. But that happens on loads of FPS games. It's not just Verdun. It's not just a Verdun issue. I mean, that happens on Call of Duty. It happens on Battlefield. I think we've all seen it on any FPS game we've ever played. But they're the 3 main issues I can think of. And I suppose the 4th one would be that this gun, if you're on a map like Picardy or Flanders, it's not really a gun you want to use because it takes a hell of a long, it's a long distance to get to one trench to another. And you can't really pick off the enemy from far with this gun. If you aim for headshots, obviously you can get some headshots, but apart from that, this gun is purely for close quarter combat, and if you can't use it in that situation, you're going to struggle. Despite the pros and cons, I think I still will always sort of side with the bolt action rifle. But it'd be good to hear what you guys think. Do you enjoy the gun? Do you ever play with it? Do you hate going against it? It'd be good to hear all those opinions in the comments below, and as usual, I'll reply to all. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.